What is your most nsfw story about walking in on someone doing the dirty, or being walked in on? Story 1. I was doing the dirty with my HSGF at the time. Her parents were strict, so we took my car behind a golf course near her house. She was facing back, I was facing forward. She stops and was like, "The police are here." I turned around and sure enough a cop's lights were flashing. I hopped into the driver's seat and pulled up my pants while my GF was trying to get her pants on in the back. The cop taps on the window and says, "What are you doing?" My immediate response was, Just having some fun." He took my ID and asked my story to make sure nothing sketchy was going on. Ultimately, he handed back my ID and said, "You guys have to find a better place, it's the middle of the day." And that's how I lost my virginity. Story 2. Haha, I was a residential security guard for a while. One night on patrol, I'm driving by a line of parked cars, shining my light into them to make sure nothing's going on, and as I pass a car I realize there were people in it. I backed up in time to see a bare white ass jumping into the back seat. Got out and approached the car, and there's a girl in the driver's seat looking nervous as F and a dude in the back seat with a towel over his lap holding a McDonald's bag. "What are you two doing out here?" "Just eating some McDonald's, sir." "Sitting taxi style and naked?" "Yes, sir." Asked them not to insult me intelligence, and told them which parking lots my company did not patrol. I wasn't out to ruin young love. Story 3. The only time I've walked in on anything, but it's a doozy. I went to tell my brother that a classmate of ours had passed away. I knocked on his door and received no answer. Not unusual, since he's a heavy sleeper, but I decided I ought to go ahead and wake him up to tell him. He wasn't sleeping. He was jacking off to hentai with his headphones on. I managed to leave without him noticing, since his back was to me, but I still saw more than I ever needed to. Now I can't remember our dead classmate without thinking about my brother jacking it to hentai. Story 4. Wife and I forgot to lock the doors an hour, at the time, for your old daughter walked in on us. We hid as quickly as we could and were successful at hiding what was going on. The next morning at breakfast my daughter asks me if we thought she was a ghost, and that's why we were hiding under the blankets. Thanks for sharing your funny stories too. They've been hilarious to go through and read. And for those who've asked, yes, I told her we thought she was a ghost, and we didn't know it was her until she said, "Mommy, Daddy." She laughed at that and thought it was silly we thought she was a ghost because Daddy always says ghosts aren't real. Story 5. In my teens, grandparents had a hot tub that was inside an enclosed sunroom. The door from their bedroom opened right next to where it was situated. I'm balls deep in the GF and working on her right boob. The door, about 2 feet away, opens and I make eye contact with Grandpa just as I'm licking my GF's nipple. He coughs and says, "Oh, excuse me," and closes the door. Grandpa was chill AF. Story 6. I was with my high school girlfriend in my room around dinner time, and she had said she wanted to try tying my hands behind my back while she, polished the shoe. I agreed for 2 reasons. 1. If this was an attempt at rendering me defenseless in order to murder me, I was pretty sure I could still take her with my legs, and 2. This was a free pass to have to not do any work, win-win. That is until she starts going at it, and my dad walks in, presumably to ask us what we wanted for dinner, takes one look at her, me, immediately closes the door, and has not said a word about it since. This happened about 5 to 6 years ago, still nothing. He's a fun guy who likes to poke fun, so I'm just waiting for the day he finally gets to make his joke about it. Story 7. XGF when I was young had a clever little trick for stealth nookie. She had a pair of tights with the crotch ripped out. She wore them under a skirt when I came for visit. She brought a blanket down to the basement den, put a movie on, and covered us up. Then she reached back, fished my erection out of my pants and guided it home while we were supposedly innocently snuggling on the couch and watching Willow. She even pre-stashed a clean-up towel under the couch cushions before I arrived. Her mom came down the stairs many times to check on us. "You kids okay? Need anything?" And there I was, balls deep in sweet, slippery, tingling ecstasy, my heart pounding as I tried to look calm and cool. GF, who'd been softly moaning and grinding herself on me a few moments before, was cool as a cucumber. "No thanks, Mom. We're good." And she actually squeezed on me a few times while talking to her. Pretty sure she got off on the danger somehow. If her mom ever told us to get up right now and come with her, we'd be so busted. But it never happened. Story 8. So one fine summer afternoon, my husband and I were sitting in the backyard having some drinks, and as one does, I was getting a bit frisky. I went in the house to make another pitcher of drinks, and came back out in my birthday suit. Husband took the hint, and we proceeded to get it on a lawn chair. I was on top of him facing the house when all of a sudden the patio door slides opens and there stands my mother-in-law. Now a normal person would be embarrassed about barging into someone's house and seeing them having sex. Not my mother-in-law. She just stands there laughing her ass off. I jumped up and grabbed the closest thing to cover up with, which happened to be this disgusting kiddie pool we have for the dog. My husband still didn't know what was going on, so he's standing there at full mast, shorts around his ankles, wondering why I'm flopping around trying to roll myself up in the dog pool. Finally he sees his mother, puts back on his shorts at light speed and starts laughing at me. I ended up walking through my house wrapped in the dog pool to collect my clothes and get dressed. Story 9. When I was a teen, my girlfriend at the time's mum walked in while I was under the covers going down on her. Not knowing what to do or say, I just stayed there hiding until she finished her conversation with her daughter, hoping I wouldn't be noticed. However, in the panic, I failed to realize my feet had been sticking out the end of the bed the whole time. Needless to say, I was mortified and could hardly face my girlfriend's parents afterwards, although in the end she was pretty alright about it and let me off pretty easy, only making a few jokes before conveniently forgetting what had even happened. Story 10. In my uni halls, walked into a mate's room to see if he was joining us for beers. I opened the door asking the question and look up to find him stark naked, laptop on legs, headphones on, meat in hand. Silence between the two of us. It was like I hit pause for a few seconds, nodded and left him to it. He came for beers too. Use your door locks, fellers. Story 11. My high school girlfriend was giving me my first blowjob. We were in my room and she was laying down and wanted me to straddle her face while she did the dead. The door was next to the headboard which I was facing. My mom walks in to see if we want dinner and, well, she saw everything. Dick in mouth, me on top of this poor girl. She slammed the door and didn't let us back in my room forever. LOL. Story 12. I was on top of my girlfriend at the time, doing the deed. Her mom props the door open. Not knowing what to do, I just froze. Her mother decided to calmly walk over to me and rest her hand on my bare shoulder. I stayed frozen as if she was AF T-Rex. All she said was, "You better be wearing a condom," walked out and shut the door. I died that day. Story 13. We were getting our walls painted back when I was around 14 years old. 2 rooms closed out. There were 3 painters, 2 men and a woman. Mom asked me to give the painters some coffee and snacks. I entered the room to see one of the guys going hard on the lady. Like Chewbacca style. The other guy was painting like his life depended on it. I was never the same since. The youngster in me obviously knew what was going on, but was too embarrassed to tell Mom. Just went to my room and fapped my brains out. Virgin gold, thanks for throwing the gold, stranger. I dedicate this star to the bobbing butt of the brown hairy painter and the unusually growly paintress. Your unholy act made me lose my virginity today. Story 14. Not exactly during sex. I was 16 and my GF was 15. I'm to her house to lose my virginity while her parents were gone. She sneaks me in the garage and tells me to wait a minute, then sneak into her room. So I count to 60, step into her house and run directly into her 13-year-old snitch of a brother. She plays it off as I came to borrow something, shoves a CD in my hand and I leave. 5 minutes later she brings me from the garage to the bedroom. I get her shirt and bra off for the first time and her mom calls and says she'll be home early in 5 minutes. I have never booked it so fast or been blueballed so bad. I ended up having to wait like 2 more weeks. Story 15. Back when I was a senior in high school, around 1996 to 97, I went to homecoming with my best friend's stepsister. His dad was married to her mom, and she had just moved in with them less than a year prior. My friend and I double dated with his stepsister and her best friend. Nothing ever happened between us two, just a date. So, fast forward to New Year's Eve. I'm at my friend's house shooting pool, playing darts, etc. His stepsister was there with a few of her friends as well. The night winds down, and I end up in the living room watching TV. I decide it's time for bed, and I would usually sleep in my friend's bed while he took the couch. I waltz into his room. It's dark and I hear the sounds of sex. Then it stops. He says, "Duck Munch, is that you?" Me, yeah. Him, oh, okay. He continues on and I just go to living room. I get up after a few minutes to get some water and his door opens. His stepsister walks out, half dressed, and was like, "Oh," and she ran to her room. So, he was banging his stepsister. He came clean to me and said he was sleeping with her. He ended up proposing to this girl and she said yes. During prom, they ended up going and I had my own date. Later in the evening, my friend's first cousin asks my friend's stepsister/fiancée if she wants to dance. My friend's okay with it obviously because it's his cousin. They go dance kind of far away from my friend and I who were talking. We look over and catch his first cousin and his stepsister/fiancée making out on the dance floor. It was at that point I was done. Story 16. My sister once walked in on me saying that I had to hang up my washing as it had just been washed. I had just finished and had some ejaculate on my hands which I was in the process of cleaning. I was undercover, so thankfully she didn't see me naked. Upon noticing what was on my hand, she said with a horrified look on her face, "What's that on your hand?" The only excuse I could think of was that I'd sneezed and some snot landed on my hand. It didn't work. Story 17. This story takes place about 10 years ago. I was having a house party at my mother's place, as you do. This one girl was there. We'd been circling each other for a while, and at some point we went upstairs to my room to F. Some time later, some of our friends figure we're missing, decide to go looking for us upstairs to mess with us. They open the door to my room, turn on the light, and here we are, her on top of me, and the covers somewhat covering us, thankfully. I quickly go over my options, figure I can't physically remove them from my room because I'm a manlet, and I figure my only defense is making it too awkward for them to stay in the room. So I don't stop pumping. The leader of that clique of friend is also talking to me, so I figure, again, best bet is to just talk to him like normal and make it too awkward for him to go on. Yes, I wasn't exactly sober. After a couple seconds of it, and a couple sentences exchanged, I realize I'm making full-on eye contact with my buddy while talking to him, and still pumping. So I stopped. They left rapidly after that. I guess the awkwardness of the situation caught up to them right after it caught up to me. We didn't resume F after that. Story 18. Back in college when I was visiting my then boyfriend, now husband, at his fraternity house, we were getting down with the get down when we were suddenly showered with drywall/insulation and greeted by 2 chubby legs protruding from the ceiling. Turns out some of the brothers got drunk and thought it would be a good idea to explore the attic. The rest of the brothers stormed into the room to see if their fallen comrade was okay. So there I was, naked, covered in fiberglass insulation, putting on an unintended show for some of the guys who would later be in my wedding party. Story 19. I was about 18 or so and I was hooking up with my stepsister's friend when my dad knocks on my door. Me and the friend stop and my dad pops his head in and asks if I'm going anywhere tomorrow. I reply no and then he leaves. The next day I asked him what that was all about and he replies, "Well, I heard what was going on, and I just wanted to make sure it wasn't your stepsister." Thanks, Dad. Story 20. I was dating a woman with a young daughter. Early one morning, we'd been woken at dawn by the sun, and were going at it safe in the knowledge that the little mite was asleep. But no. Without warning, she ran into the room. At the time I was on top, luckily with a sheet over us, so the little girl ran over, jumped on my back and shouted, Let's play horsey. So there I am, buried up to the maker's plate in her mum, with her on top going, Giddy up! I'm thinking that if I move a muscle I'm probably committing a serious offense. Luckily for all involved, the effect of that thought was immediate, and I shrank away and out, letting Mum scuttle out and find some clothes. A brief game of horsey, and the princess escaped entirely untraumatized.